You're listening to the Racer to Racer podcast presented by Race 92. Race 92 is a vintage-inspired racing apparel brand specializing in celebrating vintage race culture and adapting to motorsports today. Check out race92.com for all your racing merchandise needs. I'm your co-host, Darren McAtee, other co-host. You may have seen walking out of a great clips with a big old smile on his face. You've probably seen him at a dirt track. He is the one and the only Scott Bally. Scott Bally, what is going on?
Oh, it's all good, buddy. How you doing?
Doing great. It's the holidays. Christmas is coming up. Be here in a few days now. New Year's, holiday season. Definitely a great time of the year.
Yeah, it really is. It's a really fun time of the year, and as we talked a little bit about last week, we weren't sure if we're gonna have a show this week, but we hope everybody out there has the very best holidays possible. And man, a lot of hustle bustle this time of year, a lot of things going on, but we have a pretty good guest today.
We do. So obviously we've had Dr. Jack Miller on. Everyone's familiar with him and, kind of his racing story. His son also races for his dad's team, Jack William Miller. He's racing an Indy Pro 2000 this year. And he's already had, a lot of success, and we definitely look forward, to kind of see him end up in IndyCar, which we definitely expect to see someday. And yeah, it was really great talking to him, and just great kid overall.
Yeah, he really was. It was a good talk, and it's like as we discussed in there, we're always trying to get a lot of different people's perspectives on the sport, and try to get some of the younger drivers on, and he's obviously one of those. And it was a really good talk, and he's a smart kid. He works hard. Man, he just great. Works well with the sponsors. So the sky's the limit, I think.
Yeah, he talks about going to PRI and getting to, meet some of his sponsors and stuff like that. So definitely understands how, the marketing and networking aspect works, pretty early on in his career. So that's definitely cool to see.
Yeah, I agree. It's a whole different world today than it was even 15 years ago or 10 years ago, that drivers have to do a lot of different things to prove worth, I guess you would say. To make sponsors want to align with them, and as we just saw today, M&M's is leaving Joe Gibbs Racing, and that's big. M&M's has been in this sport for a long time, the sport of NASCAR, stock car racing, and that's a big loss, and that's too bad. They really had carved out such a great um, livery and working relationship with Joe Gibbs and the drivers they've had in the past, and you hate to see a sponsor like that leave, but that shows you kind of the climate we're in, and that's why these younger drivers are saying, "Hey, I got to figure out how to monetize wherever I can, and show these, where we almost have a working relationship as far as, hey, this is what I can do for you as well as what you can do for me."
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, obviously, through years in the sport, we've had other sponsors like that leave. And the first thing that comes to my mind with IndyCar racing is Target. When
Yeah,
obviously Target was
absolutely.
in IndyCar for years and years, and to see them leave was something very similar. But M&M's, I would actually think M&M's probably been in NASCAR a lot longer than Target was in IndyCar. Maybe.
They said that they had a 15-year relationship. I don't know if that was just with Gibbs, but I know they've worked with other tems.
They were
So,
on Ken Schrader's car, right? I'm thinking Ken Schrader. And was that
Elliott
Gibbs?
Sadler, Ken Schrader, yeah. No, I don't think it was. It was a
Right.
36 car at the time. I'm not sure who owned it, but that just shows you where we're at. And so these younger drivers are, what they say is, you build obstacles and then you got to figure out ways around them. And that's what young guys like him, like he is doing.
Right. Absolutely. So I think with our intro this week, we're keeping it kind of short because we were what's the phrase to use here? We were told that we missed something very important last week, which I feel terribly about. and so we're gonna, as Scott said, we're gonna turn lemons into lemonade.
Yeah. So, and I feel bad about this, with everything that kind of went on with PRI and just all these announcements and that. It's sad to say we really blew it, and didn't discuss Big Al Senior's passing, and obviously he's an icon of motorsports and icon of IndyCar racing, and I always remember him so much in the world, running Parnelli's Silver Crown cars, and the photos and just all of that, and it's a huge, huge, huge loss, and one of the you call him one of the big four, right? I mean, he's one of the four people who've won the Indy 500 four times, and what a sad loss. But what we've done is we asked Paul Page to come in and to give a little talk about what it's like, what it's means to lose, Al and Bobby, and so hopefully everybody can just see what he meant to people like myself, and people like Paul Page, and um in a nice tribute to him.
Yeah, and statistically speaking, he's technically the best driver to ever driven in the Indy 500 when you look at his stats.
Yeah,
That was
absolutely.
one thing my dad wanted to make sure was mentioned.
Yeah, I don't think that there's any question at that. And man, there was something about that era too, where some of those guys had kind of the rugged good looks of TV movie stars from the period, and some of them just had just movie star good looks. And Al was one of those guys. He was kind of in the whole package. And he was definitely a man of his time. His image fits that era perfectly. And just a sad loss. And it's and I don't really know what else you can say about it. I know that there was a memorial in Albuquerque, and I don't know if there's video from that can be found. I haven't tried looking for it yet. I hope there is, because I'd sure like to see it.
Yep, and they did that at the Unser Racing Museum, I believe.
Yeah.
Well, I think yeah, we'll get into Paul, but yeah, obviously we have a show this week, but I think next week we may take the week off. We have some couple more interviews we're recording this week that we're excited about. One, which as long as it still pans out, is I think we're going to start 2022 with it. So it's going to be the first podcast of 2022, and it will be kind of an oddball one. Someone you'd probably never guess in a million years, but someone who is involved with racing pretty heavily.
Right. And someone who just was a huge influence on so many people, millions of people, for not only that generation, but for generations that come along later on, oddly enough. And it's kind of this weird kind of lingering effect. It's just hard to explain. It's over the years, it doesn't really go away. I mean, it's not quite as visible as it was when it was popular, but it still's never really left the public eye, and that says a lot.
It does. It really does. Not many things like that today that have lasted that
Right.
many
Yeah.
years. So yeah, hope everyone enjoys Paul talking about Al Unser, and hope everyone enjoys the Jack William Miller interview.
Yeah. Take care, everybody. Happy holidays.
All right, so obviously, we've lost Al Senior this past week. What did Al Senior mean? Really mean to you, and mean to racing in general? You think?
Al was the total opposite of his brother, in that Al was a thinker. If he had the right race car, he was totally unbeatable. I did find it amusing that Johnny Rutherford got to drive one of Al's cars from his early days while Johnny was in England last year for the Brightwood. And Johnny called Al and said, I don't know what's going on. Maybe they just didn't set up right, but that's one of the worst cars I've ever driven. And Al said, so see, exactly. And they wouldn't listen to me. So he had a nice sense of humor. He was quiet. Don't ever underestimate that quietness, though. He and I and Bobby had some, and Junior had some great times together. One story about Al, because he loved it, and like I say, he was subtle. He'd be in on the jokes and everything, but you'd have to. He was really good at dropping it on you quietly, and you'd stop and think, "My, did he just get me?" But we were in Valcourt, Canada, actually in the town of Sherbrooke, and we were up there to do some snowmobiling and visit the Skidoo factory, and so we went out to dinner one night. And taking us out was the publicity guy, the public relations guy who had picked us up at the flag in Chicago, and was a royal pain in the butt. Well, you can't say that to him outright. He is, after all, helping out on this trip, and you're trying to promote what he's trying to promote. At least the Unsers were. And so we went to dinner, and the PR guy got roaringly drunk. Nice little steakhouse and everything. And so there's Al and the PR guy and Junior and Bobby and me. And at the end of the evening, and remembering we're really tired of this guy, he's picking up the check, which is why he's there. And he's so drunk, he says, Paul, can you put the tip on this? Yeah, sure, I'll do that. So I put a $300 tip on it. And he had to leave the next day for Chicago, so I don't know when he found out about it. But the next night we came in, the place was full, and I'll swear they were going to throw people off tables to get us back in because of that. And that was the person that saw it happen was Al, who was sitting next to me. And you can see his eyes just sparkling with that. He just loved every minute of that. And he was an incredible race driver, 4-time winner. I mean, I called that 4th win. And wow, it comes out of nowhere with a car that wasn't even supposed to be a race car that year.
He's almost lapped. Almost lapped in that race.
Right.
And you were calling it, right?
But he was. I'm sorry.
You were doing the broadcast for his 4th win, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Television for that thing. Yeah. So we're gonna miss all of those guys. Think of what a terrible year this has been. We lost Bobby. We lost Bob Jenkins. We lost Robin. Now we lose Al. If you want to maybe find a bright spot out of all of that some of us have said quietly, but should be said, it's like AJ is still there. AJ Foyt is still kicking butt.
I think he's going to outlive everyone.
Yeah, he's going to.
Yep.
He's becoming the Keith Richards of motorsports. He's just going to.
That's an interesting analogy.
He's just living the way he wants to live, and
always did.
Our guest today is a 2nd-generation open-wheel driver. He drove in the USF 2000 Championship last season and is driving in the Indy Pro 2000 Championship for the 2022 season for Miller Vinatieri Motorsports. We are joined by Jack William Miller. Hey, Jack, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you very much for having me on. I'm excited for this.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you know,
thanks.
We obviously had your dad on. I think it's been a couple months now, and we definitely really enjoy talking to him. It's definitely one of the nicest guys in motorsports, that's for sure. So, really awesome to have you on as well.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's good to get the perspective from both of us. The guy who's been in it for however many years, and then just me now getting into the sport and everything.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I think it's safe to say everyone knows kind of how you got interested in racing, but because of your dad. But talk a little bit about maybe your earliest memories of racing and when you realized like this is what I want to do.
Yeah, I remember when I was 3, they got a cart for me, and we live on some property and have animals and everything, and so a long paved driveway. And I think my first experience was just going up and down the driveway in the little kid cart, and then I fell in love with it, and ever since then I've been going through. I remember my first suit was a little Ferrari suit and everything. So just good memories, and starting out so young, it's all that I've ever really known is being in something with an engine.
Right. So when was the first time you actually raced competitively?
I started going out to Whiteland Race Park and then Newcastle when I was 3 years old. And then from there, I think I did a lot of WKA stuff in the kid carts, which was 3 to 6 years old. And then I moved up into the Micro Max.
That yeah, I've been to a few go-kart races over the years. It's always funny to see the little kids out there, and they always got the suits on, the helmets, man. They take it so serious, and you can tell they think they're flying now. To an adult, they look slow, but it's got to be thrilling for a young kid to be out, get out there and race. What did you, when did you kind of realize it? I mean, was it like you said, the love for it was immediate? Did you just kind of always think, man, I'm going to race somehow, some way? Always. I mean, that's just was never off the table.
I mean, anything that I got in, I'm a very competitive person. And so it's really engulfs your whole life, everything. You're always thinking about it. And I remember growing up, my dad used to ride a lot of motocross, I think, to stay in shape for the Indy car. And so I had a little motocross bike and I was pushing it to the limits and everything. And then once I started to really get into the go-karts and racing every single weekend, and they took it away from me because I was trying to go out on that too, and they knew I was going to get hurt. So um, it's just always been a thing with me to be competitive and want to win at everything I do, even if it's small things.
Your dad actually told us the motocross story of when Jeff Ward came to train at his track, and he thought that he'd be able to be somewhat competitive since he's done thousands and thousands of laps on the track, and he said that definitely wasn't the case.
Yeah, I'll have friends come up to me and say, "Oh, it can't be that hard to do what you do." And then um, I think a lot of people don't understand how difficult it is and how good the professionals are. If you take a normal SCCA driver or somebody who just goes to the weekend with their road car and goes on the track, and then you put them up against one of us young kids or an IndyCar driver or something, that the gap is huge.
Right. And one thing that Scott has always said, the worst professional driver is still a very good driver.
Oh yeah, of course. Nobody can outrun one of the worst Olympic runners.
Absolutely.
That's right. Yeah, it is funny too. It's funny you said that because it is funny to hear people say, "Ah, this guy sucks," and that guy sucks,
Right.
and man, this guy, and it's just like, man, like you couldn't stop at the stoplight. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you right, I'm talking to somebody ran a stop sign because they didn't see it in time, and now you're going to tell me, hey, this race car driver sucks because he didn't make some sort of pass or he crashed or something. It's always so funny to hear people talk. It's always, and you see a lot of people now with the advent of ride-alongs, two-seaters, that sort of thing. You see so many, especially other professional athletes, get in with a professional race car driver, and they're like, "Whoa, this is nothing at all like I thought it was."
Yeah, well, I think that they've done a really good job of showing onboards and doing that to really get the fans involved in it. Because I know a common misconception, always have kids in school come up to me and say, well, how does it compare to when I'm driving my car around? And they don't realize that it's totally different, that we don't have powered steering and that we're we're really pushing our bodies and doing everything for the whole race.
Yeah, whenever I
Well,
hear people
in a
Sorry,
street
go.
car, you don't have to deal with things. You don't deal with things like G forces.
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
Whenever I hear people say like, "Oh, race car drivers aren't athletes" or something along those lines, I always say, "Go to Fast Times karting," which I'm sure you've been there. And just just do it a couple times, and tell me how hard it is. I remember the first time I did, I was like, "Man, this is hard," and you're just going about 45 mile an hour, and I mean, it's a workout. So I can't even imagine, multiplying those speeds by, by about 4. And, obviously a lot more risk involved. I mean, it's just insane for a lot longer time too. I mean, fast times is like, 10-minute session or whatever.
Yeah. Well, it's become the fitness and all of the driver specific training, like training your neck and doing a lot of upper body strength has become a big part of my life in order for me to know that I can get everything out of the car.
Do you do training at
It's
Pit Fit, or do you do it somewhere else?
I went to Pit Fit for about a year and a half, and a great facility, great people there. I really like the trainers and Jim Leo and Alex Waney. But it just became a little bit having to drive 20, 30 minutes every single day. So I've just been working out at my home gym and everything. So I'm really into the bikes, which I know that you guys know a lot of other drivers will do that. And so we'll all ride together. And then I also do some triathlons and Ironman stuff on the side just to keep in the best shape that I can.
Oh, that's awesome.
we were talking about racing and driving, and the unfortunate part about the sport is obviously, I don't care who you are, how long you've done it, eventually you're going to get in some sort of crash. And to me, that's always like, especially for a young driver, that first really kind of big, like, sort of hard hit crash. It's kind of like welcome to auto racing moment, right? They talk about welcome to NFL moments, like welcome to auto racing moment. And see how a young driver responds to that. And have you had like a moment that you would call, hey, this is like my welcome to the sport moment?
Yeah, I'd say so. I had some small, just taking off a corner and everything in the Formula 4 stuff, which is expected. I mean, everybody gets in the tire wall, but the F4 cars were never, I think, really going fast enough, or whenever we hit the wall, it wasn't enough to really like open your eyes to what it was. And then recently this year at Road America, I think I was qualified P5 or something, and another car came down into one competitor in turn 3, and then I ended up going up over the back of him and flipping, and then I impacted right on the left side, right near where the headrest is and everything. And so that was kind of an eye-opening moment for me. But the car did its job and saved me, and I got right out and was ready to get back into the race car again. So I think that's...
So you never thought twice. It wasn't like, man, I don't know if I want to do this or not. Because there's some guys that don't matter the age. That moments like that, they're like, I don't know if that's something I want to do again. And you had no hesitation. You just said, let's go, huh?
Yeah, I mean, in my eyes, I'm invincible. So I'll always continue to push. And I think with age, you see drivers that will make a little bit smarter moves and not go for some of those moves that they would have made when they were younger. But as of right now, I mean, I don't think twice about it. It's nothing like that ever crosses my mind when I'm belting into the car. I'm always just thinking about what I'm going to do.
That's good. I mean, that's a hard thing for some people to overcome. I been around open wheel cars, sprint cars, midgets my entire life. And, you see a lot more younger kids run them today. And, a lot of them are fast, but boy, they have that first big one. And that, not all of them are ready to, they say, well, yeah, I'm okay. But they don't really go as hard as they did before. And some of them, they kind of get it back, and some of them never get it back, but others just, if you had a spare car sitting there and if they were all right, they would just sit down and belt in and go. And it's just, it's unfortunate. It's the unfortunate part of the sport, but it really helps kind of separate those who wants to do it versus the guys who think they want to do it.
Oh yeah.
So your dad talked a little bit about this, but what is kind of your dad's role like during the weekend? I mean, how much advice does he really like give you during the weekend? Does he kind of let you, kind of make your own mistakes and learn from them? Or, I mean, he's not like on your, I think he said he kind of sits in the stands and kind of stays away when you're actually on the track. So he's not on the radio with you or anything like that, right?
Yeah. Well, he'll go to a certain turn that's a pretty important turn. Like, I'll give you an example, the keyhole at Mid-Ohio, which is obviously the most important turn at Mid-Ohio. And then he'll watch from there. And after the session, he'll come up to me and give me some tips and stuff. But really, he allows, it's his team, and he's put in very smart engineers and very smart mechanics. So he allows me to work with the engineers and really kind of be myself. And it's not like he's there, but of course he's a very smart man, as you guys know. So he does a lot with the strategy and talking with engineers on what our plans are, because although it's not like an IndyCar race where you're having a million different things that you can do, for us, with a lot of our strategy comes into play with when we use our new sets of tires, and when in qualifying we pit and put on the new set and everything. So he really steps up in that regard and works with the team members for that. But I think the driving falls back on me, and I think that's how it should be. It's, at the end of the day, I'm the one behind the wheel, so it's my responsibility to sink or swim.
Do you through the time, fathers and sons are very interesting, especially in this type of sport, and especially if one of them, there's some dads who've done it who won't say a word because they've been through it, and they know what the son or daughter is going through. So they're just like, hey, just let them figure it out. They'll figure it out. Did like when you first started, was there ever kind of that kind of father-son pushback, or did you guys always were you guys always marching in the same direction where you want?
Yeah, there's always small scruffles on every single weekend.
Yeah.
And nothing's gonna be perfect, but at the end of the day, he's the one person who has my back, and so even though we'll yell at each other and say everything that we're doing wrong, at the end of the day, we're both pushing for the same goal. And so sometimes he'll tell me things that I probably don't want to hear, but usually 99% of the time he's right on things like that. So I think it's good to have somebody who's been there and has been through the process, even though sometimes you have to hear it from somebody else. It's still good to have. I think that experience helps more than it hurts.
Well, the best always want to be coached, right? I mean, if you look at, we talked about the NFL. If you talk about the Tom Brady's and Peyton Mannings of the world, they're always looking to be coached. And I think the same thing is for the best in anything. They said Michael Jordan was one of the most coachable players, most coaches ever had, because he would really listen and take it in. And I think that's the right attitude to have is you may not always like what's being said, but as long as it's being said from a standpoint of someone trying to help, I think. Do you have a driver coach for this year?
I do not have a set coach for this year yet. I've used Gabby Chavez, a good friend of mine, has done a lot for going into the Formula cars. But it's also, I've been blessed with my dad's friends, because he knows a lot of people in auto racing. So I've had a lot of really big names and people who are very successful that have helped me out in the past. I remember getting in back in USF in 2019 when I was doing my first oval. He had Ari Leindyke call me and walk me through, give me some tips on everything. And so just little things like that. And then I was very close to Alex Tagliani in go-karts. And then Scott Goodyear, his son and I were very good friends because we were teammates in F4 for a year. And so just a lot of big names that have helped me through my journey. So I'm very fortunate to be able to have that. I don't think a lot of people have had people around them and helping them that are champions and everything.
Yeah, no, I think that's important always to have those mentors and that sort of thing. I think Chavez was helping Burke, right? Trey Burke at the USF at the recent Griffiths test. Was that Chavez helping Burke?
Yeah, usually Sage Karam is Trey's driving coach, but Sage was not there, and so then they had Gabby come in for the day. I think they're really happy with them. Gabby does a great job with that, and he's still very current, so it's good.
And he has a great oil change business. If anybody's listening, I actually do use them. So they get the oil change in my car. So anybody listening out there, call up Gabby and have him change your oil.
I think it's a Mobile Pit Stop. It's the name of it.
Mobile Pit Stop. Yep. Great guys. They really are good guys. No, I think that's good. I just think, and I think too, different mentors can be good, so yeah, I think that's great.
So you obviously did a couple seasons in USF 2000. You've only done just one test with Indy Pro 2000 so far, right? Or has it been a couple?
I did. I wasn't going to correct you, but I did all last year was Indy Pro 2000.
Oh,
so
my bad.
Starting
Gotcha.
Second season.
So starting in, sorry. So starting in, no, you're good. So starting in USF 2000 and then going to Indy Pro 2000. Obviously that's part of the Indy Pro ladder series. What was a big Road to Indy? I'm all mixed up. The Road to Indy series ladder. So what was the big difference going from USF 2000 to Indy Pro for you? I mean, did you feel like there's a lot more competition in Indy Pro, or was it kind of balance out? Did you not really notice like a big difference, or what was a big difference for you?
I think that the biggest difference going up was just the engine package is a bit different, and so the shifting is so much quicker in the Indy Pro with how much it's a lot busier than what it was in the USF. And whenever I step back down at testing for helping people out and getting in their USF cars, it feels like I have all the time in the world. But really besides that, it's the same tub between the two, and you just have a little bit more power and then some more aero. And then I think the tires it's basically the USF 2000 rears are now the Indy Pro 2000 fronts. So the car has a lot more tire to it. But as for the competition, I mean, I think in all three of the ladder series, they're all very competitive, and everyone in there is fighting for their lives. And I think that if you look at the numbers, you'll see that USF has the most cars, but really it's not a skill thing. It's just a money thing of who can step up to the next level. And you'll see that as you go up, the numbers of cars thin out, because difference between 300,000 for USF and 600 for Indy Pro is a budget killer.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I would say there's a lot of guys, out there that, have the money to go, straight up. And I mean, some people have, obviously, to skip a couple series to go straight up. Why do you think it's important to, start at the bottom and kind of work your way up?
Yeah, well, I think with how competitive it is, you can't really get away with skipping a series. I mean, you'll see people go from Formula 4 to Indy Pro 2000, and it's a huge step to do that, and they usually don't fare as well as the guys who've spent a year or two in USF 2000 and really gotten comfortable with it. And then as for the tracks, if you start out in USF 2000, those are the tracks that you're going to race on all the way up until IndyCar. So I think it's good to get a lot of experience on those tracks, especially like Mid Ohio or IMS. You race there so many times that it becomes almost second nature to be on those tracks.
What was the car count last year for the Pro Series?
It started, I think, with 15 or 16 at St. Pete, and then ended around 12, which is how
by the end of the year.
Yeah, that always happens in some series towards the end of the year. People who know that they don't have a shot to win a championship will try and save their money so they can have a good next year.
Yeah, I was our friend of the show, Jagger Jones. Aaron and I were actually over at the Chris Griffiths test, talking to Jagger, and and he's obviously running USF 2000 this year, and I've been kind of studying a little bit more, and I think they had maybe 24 to 26 cars at a lot of races last year, and then maybe 22 to 26, something like that. And like you said, it kind of dropped down a little bit, but man, the competition is tough across the board. I've been watching a lot of the YouTube races from the last 2 years, and man, it is tough racing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's not really, it's like I said, it's not the number of cars that matter, because if you look
Right.
at Indy race with 10, 11 cars, there's some of the best drivers in the world are sitting in that series waiting for their chance at IndyCar. So, but for next year, it's looking like the fields are going to be pretty big once again. So that's exciting for the Road to Indy, and then just for auto racing in general. See, a lot of people are trying to make it up to IndyCar.
Yeah, I think this, we're looking at about a probably 4 or 5 year boom period. Would appear to me like, just by seeing who's coming from Europe directly into IndyCar. Well, for every person doing that, there's 4 or 5 others that are coming in at the lower series. So, man, I think the next 4 or 5 years in those series, there's going to be some great racing.
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully, some more Americans can occupy the IndyCar seats.
Hopefully. Not that I don't want the Europeans there either. I sure do like to see Americans.
Oh yeah, I think
do well
everybody
in those.
secretly rooting for the American drivers.
Yeah, always. I don't know though. I typically I'll find a European driver, maybe a Brazilian driver I like, but yeah, that is the one nice thing I think too about the whole ladder series plus IndyCar. It is so diverse, and I know you know this, and I know everybody listening to this knows this too. But it makes it such a fun series, because you do have so much more diversity, even way more than Formula One, because there's just no Americans in Formula One. It's just the door is shut. We can't seem to find a way to kick it in, to get in there. But hopefully someday. The Americans just have never fared well in Formula One. That's always been a tough nut to crack.
Yeah, well, hopefully the new interest in America will help change that.
Yeah, hopefully. I really do hope so. And that was going to be the nice thing if Andretti bought in, to that deal, and Herta, if he went over, that'd been pretty nice, for America to give a rooting interest over there. But maybe one day. Did you ever look at that European route, or was it always IndyCar?
I thought about it, and I know it's definitely been discussed before, but really I knew that in the end I was going to end up in the Road to Indy somehow, or racing over in America, because like you said, it's the dream's there. I think every kid in go-karting says, oh, I want to be a Formula One driver, but in reality it's not going to happen. And I realized that at a young age, and I think that helped me a bit to know that the end goal is IndyCar, and that's really where my dream is. And so for the amount of racing that you can do over in the United States for the money compared to Europe, I think that it's for me at least, it suits me better.
Makes more sense
Yeah.
financially. I mean, just
Right.
it's that's big money to try and do that. But
Yeah. And I think that the competition is nearly the same. You can see with Fittipaldi was racing in Indy Pro 2000 for the first couple of races, and then went over to F2 and has been doing well in F2. And then my teammate in 2019, Eduardo Barrichello in USF, he's gone over to Europe and is a good driver, putting in a lot of work. And so that's exciting to see, to know that it's not, I think us American drivers in the American series aren't less competition than that of the European stuff.
right, it's just more about opportunity than anything else.
So as Scott said, me and Scott were at the Chris Griffiths test, hanging out in Jagger's garage, and one thing we noticed, and we were kind of laughing about it. So after one of their practice sessions, they would take notes. So they had like a track map, and they would take notes like at each corner, like how the car handled or whatever, and then they would hand the paper to the who do they hand the paper to? Well, you call him the professor.
Yeah, Dominic.
Race engineer.
I call him.
Yeah. So it looked like, it could look kind of like, in high school, whatever, like, you're doing your homework or whatever, you hand it to him to have him check over it. We were kind of laughing about that, but how much kind of, of behind the scenes work like that goes into it for you, as far as like studying, maybe like onboard films or, stuff like that?
Yeah, quite a lot. I'll come in and I'll get out of the car and usually take a drink of water or cool off, and then say something to my dad, and then I'll tell the mechanic if there's anything that I felt that was off or wrong, or that we needed to do differently. And then I'll immediately go. Usually we're pulling right into our tent. It's not like at IMS where you're in the garages. So then I'll go into the engineering room, and I'm handed one of those maps that has a box for every single turn, that you fill out the numbers and then write down what you felt in the car. And then I'll go through on that map and write down all the changes that we made and how they affected the car. And then I'll hand that to my engineer and go out and do whatever, get something to eat. And then after he's looked it over, we'll come back and we'll really dive into the data and the video, and we'll pull up both the data and the video at the same time to find and really like try and dissect the run and everything, get all the info that we can. And then for the off season or going back to the hotel, we have multiple hard drives, and so I'll take one and plug it into my computer and watch some video. So that's what I've been doing these past couple of months, is going on and rewatching every single session of the year and taking notes on that and what we can do to improve for next year.
Do you do a lot of sim work? Do you have a sim at home and you do a ton of sim work?
Yes, I have my sims over at my apartment, and so I'll get on that whenever I can. But I'm not as big of an advocate for the sim as a lot of people are, because I think I see a lot of differences in them, and for me I struggle a bit on the sim with just feeling out the car, because I really, without,
well, you can't feel the car. That's the problem. I mean,
all through the wheel.
It's all through the wheel. It's nothing in your ass, and you can't get that. The amount of money that normal human beings have to spend, they just don't have the technology good enough to get the full immersive effect. So yeah, I think I have been hearing this a lot from these drivers, because we've talked to a few other drivers, and they kind of say the same thing. Like, it's great to learn the tracks, like just the corners and that, but you got to be really careful putting a lot of stock into it.
Yeah. Well, I know some great sim racers that are not as good in the real car as they are in the sim. And then there's a lot of my friends who were not very good on the sim, but then we can get in the car and hustle it around. So I think that
right,
if it works for you, then that's great. But if not, I mean, and I haven't had the chance to get onto one of the Delara Sims or one of the really big simulators, and maybe when I'm able to do that, then I'll change my mind about it a bit. But all I've experienced is the iRacing stuff with really modest
I've
equipment.
even heard some of the IndyCar guys say though that it can only give you so much.
Yeah, I don't nothing will ever compare to the real thing, but
right,
that's definitely a lot closer.
Right.
Definitely some drivers we've talked to, you can tell they take it, the sim stuff, it's a lot more important to them than others. You know, some people feel like it's almost like the same thing. And I think we had this conversation with Jagger, and he said it was pretty, for him, it's pretty close, and it does help him quite a bit. So I guess, you know, everyone's a little different. And actually one of my favorite interviews we've done was Will Power. And one thing he talked about a little bit was, you know, the psychology aspect of racing, and a little bit about like self-hypnotism and stuff like that. I mean, do you ever, you know, kind of dabble into any of that at all?
I think while I'm working out and I get myself really stressed out, that's sometimes that I'll think about. I'll while I'm on a group ride on a bike, I'll try and quiz myself on stuff just to make sure that I'm sharp under that pressure. And then that's a lot of the stuff that I would do at PitFit was you'd get your heart rate up, and then you'd have to go in and do eye-hand coordination things, and then mind activities to make sure that you're even under pressure, that you're still thinking straight.
Yeah, Will was talking about a lot like flow state. You know, when you get into flow state where you're consciously unconscious, and you know, to put it in a way, and things like that, where you know it's all, you know, most people refer to being in the zone, where you know you're aware of everything around you, but you're so focused on what you're doing, and all that. And it was really interesting to hear a driver really talk about that. And he says, you know, that's definitely something he, especially qualifying, can really get himself into, is that weird state where you know you're thinking, but you know you're not thinking, you're doing, but you're doing with thought, but you're not really thinking. You know, it's just this really and like I told Aaron one time, I a few times in my life when I was younger, like I'd be playing sports or something like that, you can kind of get into that. And it's a really strange thing, and I don't know if you've been able to achieve that or not, but it is a strange it is a strange thing that people can do.
Yeah, I mean, I experience it a bit, especially during a race where you're working hard, and for us it's 10-10s the entire time. There's never any
Right.
saving fuel or having to save the tires, and so it's just all out the entire time. And then there'll be times in the middle of a race that you're so focused on what's in front of you that I'll think back what happened in the last turn, and it's not even you can't even remember it because you're so fixated on the car in front of you, or trying to hit a time in order to catch someone. But I definitely think sports that it gets, the psychology plays a large role in it.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, and I'm sure you've been able to do this, where like you can kind of see a pass. You know, it depends on what part of the track you're in, but you can kind of see yourself making that pass 3 corners before you get there. You know, I mean, like you, you know, you're setting up these passes way in advance, and you can kind of get yourself to that thing where you're not even thinking about it, you're just doing.
Yeah,
you
when
ever-
you have to.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. You have to think and notice small things that people are doing, because if you rely on the person in front of you to make a mistake, then 9 times out of 10, that mistake isn't going to come, and you're not going to get around them. So you're having to always pick out the very minimal things of where they're stronger and where they're weaker in order to set one of those passes up.
You're
Right.
seeing that video that IndyCar did a couple years ago with Alexander Rossi, where he's blindfolded and he's doing a lap of Long Beach.
I think, yeah, I think I remember that, where he's
And
going through every.
right, and it was he talks about like the psychology. He like hired a sports psychologist, and it's kind of going off what we were saying, but he hired a sports psychologist, and he learned to kind of compartmentalize things and visualize things. And I mean, he basically did a lap of Long Beach. He had a steering wheel in his hand, blindfolded, and I mean, it was like 1 second off of his actual time, which is just unbelievable. I mean, basically, he could be blindfolded and do a lap of Long Beach or any track, because he says he's basically like memorized like all the corners for all the tracks like that. So that really blew me away, and probably one of the most amazing things I've ever seen.
Yeah, well, it's a very visual sport, and I think as a driver, you have to almost be able to close your eyes and be able to see every single part of a track. And then working with perception is a big thing, because the cone that's always there where you hit your brakes at, or the crack in the road, can disappear from session to session if it gets moved or if the car hits it. And so that's something I've really done, is not relied on a brake marker or something like that in order to hit my braking points and my turn-in points exactly the same. Because sometimes it's you never know. I mean, for say turn one at IMS, you know that those boards are always going to be there, and so you can kind of relax a bit and just know, okay, this is when I hit the brakes. But in a lot of other turns and other tracks, you have to always be visualizing where it is and knowing exactly where you have to hit it, because if you're 5 feet off, that's the difference between going through the turn and ending up in the wall.
It's really I think I rode a little motocross as a kid. I was terrible, but I think it's it's a real rhythm thing. Like you can get yourself in tune with the car to know where you need to be, whether the motor's at a certain pitch, or you have like this internal timing mechanism inside of you, and you can really kind of get that rhythm where you just like, again, it's kind of unspoken, but you just kind of, your body almost knows exactly where you got to be.
Yeah.
Of course, that comes with a lot of time and effort. And
that's one of the best feelings, is when you put on a set of new tires, and everything that you've been doing before, you're in such it almost becomes easy, and then you put on those tires, and then you're able to push harder, and you just feel like you're on top of the world, because now you're able to brake 30, 40 feet deeper and carry in a couple extra mile per hour, and then all your shift points are different. So it's almost like you're getting something new thrown at you.
I feel like Superman.
Oh yeah.
What? How long? Like, say an Indy Pro car, brand new set of tires. About how long of a run can you get before they, for that really big jump starts fading out?
Yeah. Well,
is it a lap, 2 laps, 3 laps? I mean, I know it depends on the track, but say like at IMS.
Yeah, for IMS, I think our sweet spot was it was pretty cold. So lap 3 to 4 to 5 it was a really sweet spot, but it depends. Some tracks at like Mid Ohio per se, or Road America, you'll go the entire session and run your quickest lap and qualifying on the last lap, just because you've burned off some fuel. And then it also matters a lot if you cycle the tires before. If you go out and put 2 or 3 hard laps on a set and then come back in, it's never going to be as good at the end of the run as if you just did one heat cycle. But then we'll go to tracks like New Jersey, and you're basically your first time lap. If you don't get it done, then you're done. So it's really
pretty. New Jersey pretty abrasive, is it? It's the track itself pretty abrasive. Yeah.
Street circuits, you're getting quicker every single lap, no matter if you're on new tires or old tires, just because the track's coming to you, and then you're really feeling out the track. So you can't push as hard on one of those street circuits as you can at a road course. Because if you drop a wheel on a road course, then that's nothing. But if you drop a wheel on a street circuit, then you're paying the consequences.
Yeah. It's the right side of the car or the left side of the car or the nose. Yeah, I would think the street courses would be because there's no way to really train for a street course. You can't go test at a street course. You can't, and there's no way a sim could get you prepared for a street course. I wouldn't think. I would think the street courses be the hardest.
Yes and no. You think because the walls are everywhere that it's a lot harder, but we're able to test at Sebring, and so that's very much like the surface is the same as the street circuits, but it's just getting around the walls and everything, and so you're just pushing to the limits, and then you'll brush up against the wall a little bit, and you go okay, and then you come back the next lap, and you're still trying to push, but not make the same mistake. And so it has its pros and its cons. I think when you're at a road course, you have to push as hard as you can, and everything has to be perfect. But on a street circuit, you can make some mistakes. You can hustle the car a little bit more and have it sliding around, and you're not going to lose as much lap time as if you were on the road course and had that same moment. So I really like them, and those are probably my favorite is St. Pete and Toronto. Hopefully we get to go back to Toronto, but yeah, everybody has their...
I don't see it. I don't see that happening again this year. I mean, the way things are shaking out, I could be wrong, but sure don't look it.
Yeah, I've got my fingers crossed because that track is a wonderful track to be on, and the fans there are great.
I'm getting fearful that that this keeps going. The promoters will finally say that that enough's enough. That's my fear, but hopefully you can go back. It's still a long way off, but hopefully we can get there this year.
What's it like having the NFL all-time leading scorer in history involved with your team, and what and obviously football and racing are two different things, but I would imagine someone who's that competitive and who has as amazing career as he's had, definitely has some great advice that can kind of be transferred over into other sports.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I think at the end of the day, every professional sport all boils down to the same competition and mind games and everything. So he's given me a lot of advice, and it translates great into race cars, because really you look at any of the pro athletes and they're all same person, just different sports.
Right. Yeah, and he's man, he's a tough dude too. I mean, if people follow his career, I mean, he had a lot of times where he could have sat out, where he had some injuries, and he worked through it, and man, he just had an unbelievable career. And I don't, here again, it's probably one of the more mentally taxing positions.
Oh yeah.
In sport, because you're basically on an island. I mean, you got all these other guys out there, but you're basically by yourself. And it's you could make 10 of them in a row, and if you miss that game winner, all of a sudden you're the bad guy, and that'd be a hard position. People think it's the easiest position, but man, that has to be a lonely island sometimes.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to do, but obviously he's overcome that, and I think that's what it takes to be the best of something of all time. I mean, whether it's
right,
NFL kicker or a race car driver, I mean, you can learn a lot from somebody who's really shined like that.
Yeah, when people call you the GOAT, you're something. That's definitely an accomplishment to be called the GOAT.
So are you guys based in Indianapolis?
Yep. I live about 5 blocks from IMS, and Scott lives not that much further than me.
Just on the opposite side of the track.
Oh, nice. So
Yeah.
were you guys at the PRI show?
I was there. He wasn't. I was. And actually,
Yeah, I didn't go. I had a racing business for a lot of years, and I went to the PRI show a bunch during that time. And these days I don't go as much. I've been
It's
there.
great for me. I was able to meet with some of my sponsors, like Bell and K1. So I always like going there, and they had K1 had the mannequins of their sponsor drivers there, and so
I saw your suit. No, actually, I drove by. I rode. I walked by. I can't even talk. I walked by. I think it was K1, right? And they had your driver suit on the mannequin.
Yeah, it's great to have those type of people behind you, and you can see the big Patterson on my suit and everything. And so without those people, then I wouldn't be where I am. So it's always good to be grateful and realize what all that they've done for me, and then what I can do to help them and promote their businesses.
And a
Well,
lot
I
of
see
that
you got
has,
one of Darren's shirts on there. I see you got one of Darren's shirts there from Shadow.
Yes.
Does Shadow do your graphics, or?
Yes, we just got because the Indy Pro is a new tub with the halo and everything. So we just got our car back from getting the decals done. They put a clear bra over the top of it.
Yeah, he's good. I really like Darren. He's a good dude, and they do great work. I haven't used him too much, but I've been around him a little bit, and he's good, man. He started off small, just like small. I remember when he first started, probably 24 years ago now, and he just slowly built that up, and they always do great work. Always do great work.
Yeah, that's something I'm very big on, is being with my sponsors and really sticking with them through everything, whether even if I am offered something better or something for free. I like to stay loyal to them, and we've been working with him for a long time, and his family. They're wonderful people. Just like with the K1 and Bell, I've been on a Bell helmet since I was my very first one, all the way up through has been Bell helmets, and so it feels good to know that you can say that you've been with somebody for everything.
and
And
for
then
Your dad mentioned
Yeah, I was
K1
and
the first time around.
I was gonna
Go ahead, Aaron.
No, I was going to say, and it's cool. Obviously, you're loyal to Bell, but that's actually come over from the generation before you with your dad. He actually told us a story about how, I think it was Bill Simpson, offered him more money and more product or whatever to switch to Simpson. And your dad was like, no, Bell's been with me since the beginning. I think he said that they gave him like $100 or something when he said he wanted to drive in the Indy 500, and they were like his first real sponsor. And he wanted to stay loyal to them. So I thought that was cool that you kind of have that same mentality, and it's cool to see Bell come from him over to you in multiple generations.
A big name in motor racing. And then with the K1, I can remember my first one. They gave everyone for World Finals in the Road Tax. They gave us all the custom suits and everything, and it was a K1 suit, and at the time I'd never heard of them, and it was a lot smaller of a company than it is now, and it's been great to be with them the whole time, and then see the growth, especially with Larson being on K1, and just how big of a name it is now from being kind of small and not known.
Right. I mean, to see K1.
Yeah, your dad mentioned
say
that it was important to stay with them too.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's CK1 in NASCAR now, because they do the suits for Larson in NASCAR as well. And I don't know if they have any other drivers in NASCAR, but that's definitely a big step, because I remember a couple of years ago, K1 was still, pretty small. So to see them kind of grow into the bigger forms of motorsports, and obviously with one of the biggest drivers in motorsports now, it's pretty cool. Pretty cool for them for sure.
Yeah, well, that's one of my goals, is as I go up through the ranks, I like to, not only am I progressing and becoming a better driver and a better person and everything, but I also love to see people who have backed me and my sponsors grow and get bigger.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Who and excuse me if I don't know your sponsors. Who you said Patterson. Patterson, is it Patterson Dental?
Correct,
Is that your
Patterson.
big sponsor?
Yes, that's the main sponsor for my car last year, and then um, hopefully that will be the main sponsor for my car in the next year and then years to come. And it's been a really great relationship. Um, and it's a huge company. It's not only dental, they have medical supplies and veterinary supplies. And so hopefully they will be with me all the way up until IndyCar. And it's just been a ton of support from them. Matt, one of the guys who will come to all the races and everything, has just been wonderful to be around and is a great friend of mine and my dad. And so that's really what it's all about, is making connections and doing the best that we can do in order to promote their business, because at the end of the day, that's what racing is. It's really a big business. And so
Right.
making everybody happy is the main goal. The driving part of it is such a small part of it.
Have you I mean, I'm sure you have like gone and done signings for them and like promotional stuff for them and that sort of thing. Did that come easy for you, natural for you? Because that's where your dad really shines, is he can really and I don't mean that in any other way. I think it's a great skill to have, is he really can talk to people and
Yeah.
make those connections. And was that something that come easy for you, or is that something that's becoming a learned skill for you?
Yeah, I mean, speaking has always been something that I've worked on and been good at. And really, it's a part of racing. You have to be a public speaker, and you have to want to woo the fans over and have them support you, because the more support that you have, the better you can go up. And really, as you can see now, I think it's not as like in the past, you'd have people who were just really good at driving a car and they could get in anything and go through. But now it's really about the money, and you see very few people without backing and without sponsors making it up into IndyCar based off of just skill. And so that's something that you have to take into consideration, is that if you win everything, you can still be out of an IndyCar ride in a year. You see with people who are phenomenal drivers in the Road to Indy that are no longer in IndyCar just because of funding. So at the end of the day, that's what comes first, is getting the funds to secure your ride, because your one mistake or one bad race or something can put you out of a ride if you're not bringing the proper money.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, that's absolutely. I think you couldn't have said any better. And as important it is to win and be up front, it is equally as important to be an asset to whatever you got to make it a win-win, as people would say. You got to be able to um, go and do the talks and represent the companies and represent yourself. And it's an interesting thing. And Aaron and I've discussed this a little bit off and on with people, and we've talked about the Haley Degans of the world, and I think it's fair to say that the success she had in ARCA, she's struggling a little bit now in trucks, but she still has extreme popularity, which is going to help carry her through this what's kind of a rough patch in her career. I mean, I think that's a fair thing to say, that she's not winning at the clip that she would like to win at, but she's worth so much more to sponsors than just what's going on the track. She's really made herself very marketable, and hats off to her, man. And I think she, in a lot of ways, and we talked to another young man, a guy named Tanner Holmes, who runs sprint cars and outlaw carts out of the Pacific Northwest, and he's got a YouTube channel, and he's a great spokesman. And I mean, and not only he's a pretty good sprint car driver. He's just getting, a sprint car deal, wing 410 stuff's hard. So, he has good nights and he has rough nights as he's learning, but like, his videos and all that stuff, his sponsors are still getting recognition. And I think you're spot on. I think it's those type of things are what's going to carry people through.
Yeah. Well, if you look at it as just a pure skill based thing, then you could be upset that somebody may get a ride over somebody else because of who they are, if they're very marketable. But when you like really stand back and look at it, I mean, if you're a company, who do you want in your car? Do you want somebody who's very popular and great with the fans? Because at the end of the day, it's if they're making you money. And I think that's really what matters in the end is the return on investment.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Yeah, I think that's very fair statement. I mean,
so you guys watching the Road to Indy results now, paying more attention to it?
yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I've been studying it a little bit more because like we have you on, we had Flynn Lazier on. He was one of our first guests. Jagger, we're talking to Jackson Lee, having him on. It's pretty exciting time, I think, for the sport. In IndyCar racing in general, and in the ladder series as well. And we like talking to all kinds of different people. Our most recent was with Bobby Allison that we released, and we've released Mario and talked to Mario. But we love talking to the young guys and girls as well. And we just try to get all these different views of the sport and different places where people, we try to find people in different places of the
Right.
sport. You know what I'm saying?
And you're talking
Yeah.
about PRI. I use PRI to there was obviously a lot of appearances and stuff, and I talked to some different people trying to get different forms of motorsports. If you look at our guests, I mean, probably 70% of them, Scott, are probably IndyCar drivers, and we're trying to really
Probably more.
probably more. Yeah, we're trying to no, definitely more. We're trying to really get a wide variety of motorsports. So yeah, we're going to get a couple NHRA guys on. There's a couple other people super excited about hopefully getting on as well. But that's really the the big thing is to, like Scott said, to get the kind of full spectrum, and to do that is really talk to different people in the sport, and not just drivers. I mean, we've interviewed like Paul Page, people like that.
Yeah, thank you for looking into the junior stuff. And like when you said Jackson Lee, we're really good friends. Kind of a group of us who are in the lower ranks and everything, looking to go up to IndyCar. We're all friends in a group chat together, and just always staying in contact. So I think it's really good for the younger drivers to get their names out there, because we are the people of the future who you'll see in 10, 15 years time.
Well, I agree. And I think it's, I mean, we always talk about the future of the sport, right? Well, the future of the sport typically is not the people that are in it. It's the people that are coming along. Obviously you take your, just like all things in life, the younger generation takes the influences of society around them and takes the influences of the people in their chosen profession before them, and they make it their own. And that's a really neat thing, to just to hear the young, it's interesting to hear how you look at something. It's interesting to talk to Jagger and hear how he sees something. We haven't had Jackson on yet, but it'll be interesting to talk to him. It was interesting to see how Tanner Holmes sees the world, because it's going to be different than how I see the world. And I think it's really interesting it allows people my age, I'm 52, it allows people my age to kind of see where the sport's headed and where things are headed. And and like he said, we're trying to have a huge variety of people on, announcers, just different people in the sport, because I like to hear everybody's view of things, and where they see things and how they see things. And I think that's how you get a good representation of the times that we're in. The what is I mean, auto racing, as we all know, it takes so much time and effort. I mean, it really, and it's really, and what's crazy about auto racing is it's one of the few sports that you can't just go practice whenever you want. So you have to dedicate a lot of time and effort to actually getting to that point, being able to practice. And when you had go-karts, I'm assuming, but that you spent a lot of time working on the carts and being around the carts, and getting your hands dirty at that level. Have you been able to find other things in your life that you enjoy, that you can kind of go do and get away from the racing a little bit?
Yeah. I'm a very active person. I'm always working out, and then I enjoyed all. We have a home down in Florida, so I'll go fishing down there and everything. But really, a lot of my life is centered around the race cars, because the shop is here. Luckily, it's at my house, so I'm able to, in a couple minute walk, I'm already there at the shop. And I've always been wrenching on the go-karts or working on like a project car and everything, and then trying to learn from the mechanics about as much as I can learn from the race car, because I'm a firm believer on knowing all the different working parts and what they do helps as a driver. So when I come into the pits and I'm thinking about making a change and telling my engineer what I feel that the car is doing, I think if I'm able to really understand every little bit of the car, then it helps me out. So I'm always out there asking questions. Usually I'll leave the working on it to them, because they're the professionals, and they let me drive the car, and I don't want to jump in and try and tell them how to do their job, because they know it 100 times more than me. But I'm always trying to learn more about it, and just want to immerse myself in the racing as much as possible.
I think it helps to understand each other's language, because you have a language, they have a language, and that's half the battle, is getting your thoughts and their thoughts, and everything to mesh where they fit together like a puzzle. No, I think that's good. I do. It's so hard. Auto racing's hard. I mean, it's the hardest thing. If you try to be a professional racer, I don't care if it's a mechanic or a driver, and whether you succeed or you eventually hit the end of the road, and you go do something else, it'll be the hardest thing you ever do. This,
Oh yeah.
there's nothing, I guess, outside of rearing children department. I don't think there's anything harder in the world than racing. I mean, like I said, music, you can sit and play guitar for 20 hours a day to try to get better. And it isn't like, you have a bad show, unless you're somebody like a band like the Who, and you got to fix all your equipment. You know what I'm saying? It isn't like you have like a bad show and you got to fix all your guitars and your amps and everything. I mean,
Or you fall off the
you just have
stage
yeah,
or something
you just
like
have a
that.
bad show. you know, it isn't, auto racing, you have a bad night, you got to fix a lot of stuff a lot of times. So it's difficult, man. Auto racing is just difficult, and it's so hard for people who aren't in it to really understand it until they kind of walk in those footsteps a little bit.
Yeah, well, I mean, last year in the off season, we did 12 days of testing. And I thought that was like talking to people about it. That was like a huge number. And you think about any other sport for months on end, only doing your sport for 12 days. That's unheard of. You wouldn't be able to do anything, but in our sport, that's a lot of testing to do. So it's all on the context.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought like
it's
sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Aaron. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, like, talk about the off season. Have you ever thought about like, maybe doing some like endurance racing, obviously like 24 hours of Daytona is a big race. A lot of open wheel guys do. And I know they have like it's not the Pirelli World Challenge anymore, but they have like the smaller like GT series of race there as well. So there's tons of opportunities in that. Have you thought about, doing stuff like that during the off season to kind of, stay sharp and to, be able to still race?
Yes, I have, but I think it all comes down to money.
Right.
And, but I have some stuff planned for not only just the Indy Pro 2000 this year, but also getting into some other Formula stuff, and then some prototype cars. So hopefully that all pans out, and it's something that I'm able to diversify what I do. I don't want to give too much away about my plans and everything, but I'm working hard on being able to not only just do the Indy Pro 2000, which alone that's still a huge feat to do and really consumes most of your time. But I think it'll be good for me to get into some other cars as well.
Yeah, I'm sure. And if you get something a little faster and more powerful, and then you can kind of come back to what you're doing, and it kind of changes your perspective on it a little bit. And there's some people that think if you're doing one type of racing, then you should only do that type of racing. And I'm not a driver, so I can't say either way. But I think the Kyle Larsons of the world, and the Marios before him, and the Foyts before him, and the Parnellis before Kyle, I think they all proved that a racer can be a racer. You can drive several different disciplines.
Yeah, if you're quick if you're quick in something, you'll be quick in everything else. I mean, you see that with any F1 driver. When they get into another series, they're automatically right up at the front. But I think it's good to really try and do as much as you can, even in a kart. I mean, just being in something that you're driving is always a good experience. And it's harder as you move up the ranks to be able to get into something that's quicker. Because if you look at a lot of cars, there's not very many that are quicker than the Indy Pro 2000, or even getting up in the lights in IndyCar. Those are the top of motorsports. So, but whether it's a go-kart or anything, it's time in a car.
Right. Hey, I'm looking at your go-kart. I assume that's your go-kart, like nose cover or whatever. What's the playing cards represent?
That's my logo. So it's Jack's.
Okay.
And it has my helmet and suit. I'm the Jack, and so it's been just
I didn't realize that's cool.
Kind of a fun thing that I've had since go-karts.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I haven't seen it.
And then it's been on the back of every one of my helmets.
Can we find it? Obviously, we can find it online or something. Or you got right there.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, yeah, I didn't realize that. That's really cool.
That's real cool.
Yeah, so I keep all my helmets. They're never the same, but they always have the same look and feel to them. So I'm big on always being recognizable, because you'll see Indy cars, and as a fan, even if you're not into it as much as someone like myself, it's hard to know which driver is which and everything when they're changing helmets and cars every single race. So I like to keep it the same, so people who've been following me since karting just can look and see that's me.
Well, that's really cool. I like that.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of drivers who like do.
Yeah,
Well, it
thank
seems
you.
like a lot of drivers now like kind of keep their designs kind of the same. It seems like, but I know like, well, Dan Weldon, he had a different helmet design for just about every time he was in the car. It seemed like that dude had a lot of helmets. And Jimmy, I'm sure you were seeing like Jimmy Johnson's Instagram. That dude had more helmets during the one season than most drivers probably have their whole career. I mean, he did like 20 helmet swaps this past year, which is crazy.
Yeah, well, sadly, with the halos and the aero screens, it's becoming less where you can
Right.
look and see the driver. But so maybe you can get away with that now. But I like my stuff and keep it the same. And it's red, white, and blue. So love representing my country.
Absolutely. I like it.
You have anything else, Scott?
I don't. I'll tell you, it's absolutely been a pleasure talking to you. And I'll probably see you at some of the races this year. I plan on going to probably 6 or 7 of the weekends.
Oh, nice.
So I'll introduce myself, and I'll definitely watch you. And like I said, it's been a pleasure. And hey, some always try to do young drivers, and we kind of covered it earlier. I mean, is there any more sponsors you want to take and plug while you're on here?
I don't want to complicate you guys too much with that. Really, just really focus on Patterson.
Okay.
I'll plug my
Well,
my Instagram. If anyone wants, it's Jack Miller _40.
Yeah, I can put it in the description as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, no
Well,
problem.
thank you guys for having me on. I was really excited.
Yeah, like I said, you know, I knew we wanted to talk to you after we had your dad on, and we definitely appreciate it, and definitely, you know, good luck during the season. We'll definitely stay in touch, and we definitely look forward to seeing you in Indy Lights in the next couple of years, and definitely expect to see you in the Indy 500 here in a few years. So definitely look forward to that.
Oh yeah, that's the goal.
that's right. It's a dream.
Yeah.
Well,
right, well,
again, thank you so much. It's like I said 20 times earlier, it's been a pleasure. You're a great example of where the sport's going, and thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. See you guys.